us. He's a mentor to many students. So a small introduction about Dr. MK Unnikrishnan. So he did his B Farm from BITS Pilani in the year 1978, M Farm from GCP Bangalore, and PhD from Mangalore University 1997. He teaches pharmacotherapeutics, pharmacology, drug discovery. He has graded over 12 PhD students and published over 100 peer-reviewed articles. He has a Google Scholar citations over 4,500 and H-index of 35. Dr. MKU divides his time between drug discovery, public health, education, evolutionary medicine, Ayurvedic biology, to name a few. He holds patents for novel non-ulcerogenic anti-inflammatory molecules and novel AMPK activator leads with potential application in inflammation and metabolic disorders. He has worked on novel molecules with a multimodal action in inflammatory disorders with an evolutionary etiology. Two commercially available molecular products developed by his team in collaboration with Dr. Judy Dehan of Baker IDI and Heart and Diabetes Institute, Melbourne, Australia. Dr. MK is among the first to enroll as a member of the Society of Evolutionary Medicine and Public Health and publishes as Dr. MKU is editorial board member of Scientific Reports, Nature. Dr. MQ is recent publications in Economic and Political Weekly, Health Policy and Planning, discuss contemporary socio-political problems in Indian healthcare. He has over 40 years of teaching experience after 33 years of experience from his current professor in Nitya University. So I welcome you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akhil and Dr. Akash and the organizers, the management of KMCT, Sangeeta Sukumaran, who was, I think, launched the whole program. Thank you very much. All my former colleagues. I don't think the audio has been very clear, not when Akhil spoke. I don't know if it is the same with me. I would like some.
No, sir. Your audio is clear, sir.
Thank you very much for that. I am relieved. Now, since I'm logged in from the mobile, I'll be asking Dr. Akash to change the slides for me, and I'm sorry for this inconvenience. Anyway, it's great to be back talking to people after a long silence in the lockdown. And it's good to see that we have a diverse interdisciplinary crowd with so many different backgrounds. I'll be, as a teacher in pharmacy, discussing mostly issues that would reflect issues in problems in healthcare education. And that would be the focus, but it will definitely be useful to many others, I'm very sure. Now, take the second slide, please, after the title.
Sir, some technical issues, sir. Just 1 minute, sir. 1 minute.
Sure, no problem, no problem. Yes. So, what I want to say is that, see, we are different from animals and birds, and the major difference is that we carry an extra genetic inheritance, and that is what education is about. We are able to, now if you look at the weaver birds, the nests, you might have seen those birds which weave very interesting nests. When the slideshow comes up, you'll be able to see those birds, the nests. And those nests have a very interesting pattern and requires enormous expertise to create. The bird does it with just its beaks. It doesn't have any equipment, no manufacturing facility to do it, but it does it with great beauty. But the difference between what man does and the bird does is that the design of this cage has remained constant for centuries, millennia, for millions of years. Ever since the bird began to build this nest, it has never thought of changing its design, creating a new pattern, adding an extra bedroom. No, it has not happened. What's the reason? The reason is that the design is dictated by the control of the DNA. and it's nothing to do with the logic of the mind. And that's where a human being scores above the creatures we see around. So we have an intelligence which translates into inherited, uh, like in the sense it induces a certain group of community around us to learn from us, and the next generation is richer by so much of information, and that we call education. Now, this culture and education, all these are a part of mostly human civilization, and you don't find that in animals. And that makes a big difference. Now, the major issue in education today is the explosive growth that you see today. Now, you can see the slide 2 there, isn't it? Next one, please. Akash, the
Yes,
next
sir.
slide.
Right, sir. Just some.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. There's no hurry. Yeah, and so if you look at education today, the biggest problem has been, of course, the current problem is the shutdown, the lockdown. Now, this is the bird I was talking about, the weaver bird and the nests. This nest has not changed its shape or size or pattern for millions of years, but the human products, what we create, it's changing. That's reason is because this is a product of the DNA. It's the instinct the bird has which produces the design, but man keeps changing. And how do we change? Because we have a concept of educating the next generation for which we are responsible. The elders are responsible. You cannot blame the child for something that goes wrong. It is the fault of the teacher, the community of teachers that create an error in the students' inheritance of knowledge. Next slide, please. So now, if you look at the hierarchy of education, education must build with data, then it becomes information, it becomes meaningful with knowledge. The knowledge must be applied, and that's what you call technology. And finally, it's supposed to create wisdom, but it doesn't automatically happen this way. Now, what in the colleges we do is we are generally, unfortunately, focusing on information and knowledge. And this knowledge, from its processing to the level of information, requires a lot of thinking, and this is not measured by our examination system. So this educational hierarchy ends with the information. So we're just loading students with information. We have no system to create a great amount of thinking in the students. Next slide, please. Now, that is because of a sudden change in the way in which we have suddenly progressed. Next slide, please. Slide 3. Now, look at 4, that is slide 4. Yeah, this is the past versus present. There's been a sudden, the next one, yeah. The small volume of information in the past has now become a huge volume, a tremendous volume. There are millions. Every 20 seconds, a new paper in science is being generated. A new journal is being published. One article is coming every 20 seconds, every day, every moment. And in the past, it was intuitive, and now it's become empirical. Empirical means it's based on experimentation. You cannot imagine and produce information. You have to demonstrate in the lab, in the field, something that happens. It was mostly individual effort in the past, but now it's group effort. Individual effort in the sense, now you know that the telephone was made by Graham Bell. But if you ask somebody who made the flash drive, you cannot give an answer. The reason is it's no longer individual effort. A new innovation always comes with a whole group working in it. You cannot get an answer for who invented the electric car. You can't have an answer for that. Who made the lithium battery? We don't have an answer for that. There are many who contributed. So it was what was invested with interest, vested in the hands of one has now become a group effort. And this is one reason why if you do not bring yourself into groups, you cannot be effective. And the comprehensive nature of information has now become fragmented. See, we had books in the past. Charles Darwin, for instance, wrote a book, Origin of Species. His theory was explained in the book. Today, it's not like that. An idea comes up in the form of papers. And there, I told you, every 20 seconds, a new paper is being published. Highly fragmented, it's all in pieces. You have to bring them together to understand what's going on. And it was very general in the past. And now it's no longer general, it's highly, let's say specialized. The subjects are becoming specialized. And there are, instead of books, we have periodicals, journals, and the primary sources and the secondary sources create a lot of bulk. And education has become very inexpensive today. Acquiring it's very inexpensive, but getting a degree has become expensive. It's much less expensive than in the past. In the past, if you wanted some reading material, you have to buy the book. There was no way you could get access to a journal unless you get to a library which subscribes it. There was not even photocopying equipment at that time. So the only way was to get the journal, look at it, read it, one person at a time. Now it's not that way. Thousands of people are reading BMJ at this moment. Many thousands are reading a single piece of information on the net is being read by many. So it's become very inexpensive to learn. But the degree, the formal learning has become expensive. In the past, it was inexpensive to an extent, but it was not really expensive. It was not expensive. It was not inexpensive if you wanted to acquire a degree without the support of government. Anyway, these are all complex issues. We'll come to that later. Next slide, please. Next slide. That is slide 5. Yeah. Now, if I tell you, there's been a tremendous growth of information acquired from the net. The World Wide Web has enormously contributed. Too many peer reviews papers are available, I tell you. Now, if you look at it, India itself has published in 2018 more than 1.35 lakh papers in 2018. It must be much more. It's growing very fast. India has got some of the fastest growth in publication. India is growing at the rate of around 18% publication. It was growing at 18%, not 18%, 10% in 2008, and now it is around 5%. But it's enormous. See, China is growing at a huge rate, and China was behind us, and now they have taken up. Now, look at the way China has moved ahead of the United States. That's what is very interesting. China has become a lot more competitive than even US in terms of publication output. The world is changing. You must be aware of these things. Next slide, please. Next slide is about the rising digital inclusion. See, now India, until recently, we never had access to many journals now which we can get free, because the web allows you to access. In fact, you don't have to be in a university. You can be at home. You don't need a university affiliation. You don't need much money. You don't need much equipment. A cell phone is enough to read some papers, actually. It comes in EPUB format. The fonts are enlarged. You can read and scroll comfortably. And everything is so easy. And you can just get it with a Geo 350 rupee plan. You can have as much information as you want. It's less than what you spend on coffee probably per month. So such has been the change in the way information is available. And I want this to be a stimulus for the students to work towards a lot of extra effort in acquiring knowledge. Next slide, please. Yeah. Now, interestingly, India was blessed by the pandemic. Blessed, I wouldn't, please don't misunderstand me. The internet coverage and the ability to access information grew enormously during the pandemic. The internet penetration increased by 47 million, about 8.2% between 2020 and 2021. 8% increase in internet coverage in 1 year. And that was quite a lot because of the COVID pandemic that we are now experiencing. You're listening to me because of the COVID pandemic. I don't think people from other states would have ever come to Kerala and listened to me. Now, these are all, I think, a certain amount of advantages we must consider. There are about 624 million users. They were in January 21. It must be much more now. And the penetration, I told you, went up by 8%. That's in the year. There's been a tremendous increase in the digital subscription to Zoom, Google Meet, etc. Google Workspace. Now this one is WebEx. The one that you're now using is WebEx. All these things have increased only because the pandemic shut us in. And this was the only option for a country like this. And the telephones, I remember when I was teaching in Kerala until a few months back, Kerala was banning its telephone usage. The children, I remember some children, the telephones used to be confiscated and it was not given back unless the parents came and begged forgiveness. And now the parents are buying telephones so that the students can use it. All this has happened, this change in attitude towards the internet, towards telephones, towards learning online, all this has changed only because of the pandemic. So in a way, we should be, the educators, the education section should be grateful to the pandemic, not for everything. Of course, a lot of students are suffering, but I'm sure this will leave a good impact on the students. I'm going to end it up with a certain lesson that we have learned from what we call the blended learning effort. I'll come to it in a few more slides. Now, the telephones which were banned in Kerala is now ringing in the children's bag, okay? And the official meetings, you know, there was a time when these official meetings required, I still remember one of my colleagues who was working in the virology department, he used to travel to New Delhi, you know, air ticket to New Delhi, stay in a hotel, eat expensive food, travel by taxi to the venue, attend a meeting which lasts 8 minutes for him. In other words, he spends 8 minutes to make a presentation and travels 3 days to achieve this. Today, what happens? You switch on your Zoom and talk. So those 8 minutes are directly available to you in your office, sitting there, no money spent at all. So this is the change that India has experienced. And I want this to be a lesson to all of you, to the teachers in particular. We need not, I'm not saying that I'm against offline, direct, face-to-face learning. No, no, no. I'm very much in favor of that. But what I'm trying to say is we should learn to actually add the direct face-to-face experience with an internet experience. This has not been optimally leveraged in India. It's one reason why India has been very wasteful in its expenditure. Like I just gave you the example of an expert traveling to Delhi to make an 8-minute presentation all the way from Manipal, spending 2.5 days either flying or by train or then money in the taxi and so on and so forth. I think a lot of industries are suffering because of that. But then all such wasteful expenses, thank God, I would say, has gone away. Now, these are lessons for teachers too. Now, when we can conduct a lesson offline, why not? Okay, next one, please. So the next slide, what we have is about the January 21 figures, which has been dominantly towards social media. Now, the big problem with internet is that any expansion in internet facility is also coupled with a great amount of rush to the social media. That's because of the universal love for gossip, the human tendency to gossip. Gossip is a necessary part of life because it is one way of keeping in touch with the society in which we live. You must learn about your peers, your people, your seniors, your subordinates, your enemies, your friends. It's very necessary for survival. So social media is by nature an instinct for us. We are drawn to it. So we cannot curb that altogether. But unfortunately, it is biting into the time that we allot towards education. That's where things go wrong. And in this situation, as we are now facing the pandemic, it's important to understand that people are using the cell phone for many, many more hours. Okay. So the personal effectiveness is partly challenged by the distraction towards social media. Anyway, so let's forget the social media. Of course, 32.3% of the total population of social media use. This is one side effect of the expansion of the internet, which cannot be avoided. But remember, even the social media is at least partly devoting time towards learned discussions, scholarly exchanges, very good books. I've received so many books online during this pandemic. Information, excellent news channels, good science videos, good articles, fantastic programs about, the latest, so many videos, and also so many disinformation campaigns, so much of scandal and so much of gossip. It's diluted with both. Well, the next slide, I would like to say that the mobile connections, 1.1 billion connections in India in January 2021. Now, mobile connections increased by 23 million by 2.1% between January 20 to January 21. Increased by 2.1%. Now, please understand this 2.1% was during the pandemic when there was not much money capacity to buy. But the mobile connectivity has now become quite substantial, about 80%, and a lot of it is because of education. Next one, please. Now, the pandemic, as I said, has fueled the digital transition, and there is a lot to learn from this. In the educational sector, the net penetration has to reach about 55% by 2025. I think it will reach faster. The digitization of education is one of the topmost priorities of this country with this increase in digital penetration. Many e-learning portals have appeared. You might have all heard of Byju's. If you see a cricket match, you have to see Byju's board somewhere, isn't it? Many e-learning portals have appeared and they're all performing well. They're all increasing the number of learners who enroll for online courses. The new normal is online today. Now people have understood that the online systems have its own merit. I'll be explaining to you what a study we did on our own with students of National College of Pharmacy. I was a co-author in that. We confirm the value of online education, and I advise all of you to move towards personal effectiveness through online education. I'm going to explain to you very shortly how it happens. Now, until 2020, the Indian universities were not allowed to offer more than 20% of a degree online. See, there was a rule in the government that Indian universities cannot, that is 80% of educational content must be delivered face to face. That was the rule. Now, this rule is going to change. Now, this restriction might go and more content may be delivered online. So what's the advantage? The advantage is that it becomes much less expensive, much more penetration happens into the rural segments. Sitting in a village, a person can learn at his own time, at his own pace, with minimal supervision and maximum freedom. So this kind of flexibility that online education offers has not been experienced by India. India has not tasted the freedom of online education. Online education has never been the norm. It has always been online entertainment. Now, for the first time in India, we are moving from online entertainment, online leisure, and to online education. This is a transition which pandemic has brought in, and I'm very sure there will be books written on this transition. It's a subject for future discussion, which I'm sure many would appreciate as I say this today. Now, many edtech companies are flourishing today. I read about 39 edtech companies have emerged in the short while after this pandemic came out. Now, look at the offers they have. They're taught teaching management resources. There is blended learning, AI-based experiential learning, interactive learning. So many forms of learning are coming in. Next slide, please. Now, the national educational policy. Next slide. The national educational policy has a thrust area and the area is emphasis on digitization and technology. Now, why is the NEP making this thrust? The reason is that it increases rural delivery of education. That is, it saves money, it saves resources, improves the quality, especially in smaller cities, tier 2 and tier 3 cities and villages. See, now remember, all the big teachers are all focused in the big cities, the big institutions. The poor cities, the smaller cities, they are unable to attract the good teachers. So what happens is that they have to compromise with quality. Now this doesn't have to happen because the digital resources are a technology that can be shared very easily at no expense. So the pandemic has taught the government that technology reaches small towns and villages effectively and provides access to the best teachers sitting in IIT. Now in IIT, those teachers who speak today, giving a class, that class can be replicated online. Now, the online educational format, I remember, has been there in the West for a long time. I remember when I visited Australia, I was teaching there for a month or so. I was a visiting teacher. So the system was that you have to record your lecture. So the lecture is recorded. As you teach, the lecture is recorded automatically and uploaded on the student website, the student portal. The advantage of recording the teacher's lecture is there are two advantages. One is the teacher becomes very careful about what he talks because it is recorded. He can be caught even after the lecture is over. The second thing is the students can listen to the lecture at leisure. He can be absent today and still listen to my lecture. And even before you go to the lecture, the slides which I'm going to present during the lecture should have been already uploaded on the website. So from the slides, the student can actually understand what I'm going to talk about, what material he needs to read up and come to the class. So he is well prepared. So it kind of primes the student, makes the student ready for the class. Such facilities have never been there in offline education. Face-to-face education is always a teacher comes, he talks and goes away. Everything is forgotten except by those who have taken notes. That's the way things are. Now, looking at the pandemic, it has catalyzed digital awakening. That's what I would put it. This is the way the pandemic will be remembered by the educationists as a day of awakening, as a season of awakening, digital awakening, let's call it. And the budget of 2021-22 has allocated a lot of money for this, and the Department of Higher Education was allocated so many courses. The numbers don't make much sense because I have no idea how much is going where. Okay, next slide, please, slide 12. Now, the slide 12, I talk about the priorities. The key priorities in higher education are making the students ready, employable, assessing the competencies and aligning them to the job needs, and research and innovation to the core of education, making education affordable, time to junk the monotonous rote learning that's everywhere, less memorization, more understanding. These are the priorities. Now, the digitization cannot achieve all of this, but it can provide a thrust towards it. the emphasis on reliable, reproducible, relevant digital assessment is also coming up. That is, people want to assess the students online. So these things, like the AIMA, ISB, etc., are also trying to achieve this online digital assessment. It's possible. See, now let's understand one thing. The most important examinations are all online, isn't it? The JEE and the GMAT and the GRE and all that. A lot of it is on. At least a good part of it is online, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not true that the online education cannot judge people on the basis of whether it cannot quantify people on their potential and things like that. It is just that we have not spent enough time devising a strategy to make an online education, online assessment credible, reproducible, and respectable. This can be done, but there's been no trial towards all this. And what's the reason? The reason is simply that we have never experienced digital education until the pandemic struck. That we should have been ready with. Like it has been ready in the West was already ready for education. Digital education was already there. It was already a part of their normal experience. They just have to shift the proportion. Like I told you, when I went to Australia in 2010, that was about 11 years back, this system was already in place, recording lectures, uploading the slides and all that. 10 years ago, it was already, and I went to a very small Chota university. Please make no mistake, I didn't go to any Harvard or Cambridge. I went to a small university in Australia, not even USA or something like that. So now please understand, India can as well do all these things that the West has been doing for many decades. And it can make a very big difference to our student community, the teachers, the attitude towards education and its result. Next slide, please. So the tools and platforms, next slide. Now, I would like to say that the tools, methods, and platforms are not very difficult to achieve. The digital teaching will help to overcome a lot of shortage, and the poor student teacher ratio can be improved. There'll be a lot of teaching resources. Already it's available. Now, in fact, many of my students are already looking for online lectures instead of listening to regular repeated lectures. Teaching tools and methodologies reach the students in the remotest corners. That's another advantage. And technology solves the problem of teacher shortage to a great extent. Because one teacher can be shared by many thousands. Now, technology also upgrades the teacher's skill towards the portal called Diksha for. This is for, of course, school teachers, but I'm sure similar technology will be available for teachers of all disciplines in tertiary education. Now, it's just in the process of experimentation, but this kind of, now what you're doing today, now what's happening today, now we are having an online webinar, isn't it? Now, this webinar has been in vogue in the West for many years, but India woke up to its value only when we had no option. Please understand, that's a difference. Now, next slide, please. Now, please understand that there is a myth that exams cannot be online, and this is a myth. Because, as I already told you, the best examinations, the most important examinations, the examinations which decide the career, the future of a child, most of them are online. At least a good part of it is online. JEE, GATE, and GMAT, and all that. Isn't it? A good part of it. Okay. Next one, please. Or if it is not already online, it can easily be made online. Next one. So next slide is about the online examinations as a possible reality. People think that online examinations cannot evaluate thinking, cannot evaluate language skills, cannot evaluate problem-solving skills. But that's not true. It is just that the evaluation tools have to be upgraded to manage these skills. I know it's not easy. The problem is that the key examinations decide the fate of Indians are already online. Okay. And we don't look at these things, Above objectivity, In fact, even before they were digitized, the objectivity of these examinations were already there in place. Now, if you can convert an examination into an objective examination, digitization is quite easy, as any computer person will tell you. It's only when you have essays and long answers and subjective interpretations, etc., then the evaluation becomes complicated and difficult online. Even then, there are, of course, they can scan the paper. It's done. Actually, many universities have a virtual answer paper screening, for evaluation, online. I mean, sorry, what's that? Central evaluation is conducted by these kind of systems already. You can find them. There are softwares for that. Now, next slide, please. That is slide 16. Now, slide 16 is about the KUHS. Oh, sorry. Where am I? Yeah, KUHS. I think we can skip this because KUHS is not most of the viewers, most of the participants are from outside Kerala. We can skip this slide and go to the next one. Next one, please. Now, the advantages of online examinations. I must go a little into detail on this. Now, digital platforms can support customized assessments. Now, these are all based on AI systems. Now, if you are having an objective question paper, the questions can come in different order for different questions, different students who are attempting the examination at the same time. Remember that a batch of students will be examined. Assume that a batch of students are being examined at the same time. Okay. In the same hall, all sitting in a line, as if it was a written examination, as if it was offline. Okay. Now, even in such a situation, it is possible that each student is receiving a different question paper. Not only that, even if the question paper is the same, you can have the questions coming in different order so that you cannot look at your neighbor and answer the question, even if it is a simple tick. Now, look at the manner in which these sequencing can be programmed. One way of programming it is that the difficulty levels can be raised based on the way the student answers the previous questions. Suppose he has answered question 1 to 10 very competently. The 11th question will become at next level. And if he answers 11 to 20, 19 very well, the next level, he goes into the next level of difficulty. 30 to 40 will be even more difficult. In this manner, you can finish the examination faster, because if he reaches the highest level of competence, he can even finish the exam and leave the hall earlier with a higher score. Whereas if a person is stuck at the lower level, he will continue to receive low-level examination questions, and he will not go above a certain level. And it is wrong that examinations cannot be useful if there is no personal interview. It is not true. In fact, examinations, if it is online, there's an added advantage that results can come quickly. The results are feedback from the results. If it reaches the students, it helps the students to be more alert to the next examination and more receptive to the kind of learning content that he receives. There's a scalable, secure, credible system to manage examinations from the remote controls. And online proctoring and certification is also feasible online. See, in fact, there is a lot of myth about the limitation of online education and evaluation. Now, in fact, the web-based computerized examinations reduce costs. It saves time. It has a wider reach. It's extremely secure. It can be made extremely secure. Of course, you need an invigilator also. But, see, remember, a lot of these big examinations are anyway going on that way. It minimizes human operational infrastructure and logistical costs. There's a lot of money saved. Saves time in planning, coordination, and result generation is instant. Larger candidate pool. without geographical constraint. You can conduct one in Ladakh at the same time you can have that being conducted in Visakhapatnam. Both same exam, both same time. Nobody is supervising with, everything comes automatically. It also ensures auto-invigilation. You can have cameras. You can see, if the moment you have a camera planted close to the candidate watching, it's very difficult. The student will himself be careful about copying because there's a record. There's a record he has generated because there'll be pictures captured about what he does from moment to moment. So it will automatically bring down such kind of malpractice. We have this wrong notion that nothing can happen. It is all possible. It's just that we have not considered these things until COVID came and struck a blow. So next slide, please, 18. Now the digital revolution. Next slide. So let me pause for a while. Now what I've been talking about is all about education. Okay. Now the digital revolution goes beyond that. Digital revolution is much like the invention of writing. Before there was writing, before there was recording of what happened today, there was no such thing as civilization. They've lived almost like animals. Civilization virtually started or took off with the invention of writing because what the previous generation knew, it was possible to transfer to the next generation. Now, with the digital revolution, it's become a lot more instantaneous, quick, and facile. So this facility, this sudden transformation into a digital world is making the biggest change in the manner people think, interact, work, and entertain themselves. So it's got long-term consequences, not just in education, but in the world, in the way of life. It will shape a new normal future. A few years from now, see, I told you, in Kerala where I used to teach, the parents used to complain about, I was actually in favor of providing cell phones as an information search tool, but everybody was against it. I found myself isolated. But today, the government has imposed online education to the schools. So there's no other option. Actually, we should have anticipated the arrival of digital education systems. That we did not do, and we are paying for that. In fact, when I went to this college, when I was teaching until 3 or 4 months back, I had tried my best to cultivate a certain amount of digital existence, digital participation, digital learning, digital exchange of notes. And I was not very successful to a great extent, but I did create a certain pocket of interest, and many of them did adapt to systems, and I'm very sure they're all benefiting from this, especially in today's systems where things have changed. Now, what I'm trying to say is that we are now going to face a new normal. And if you want to be effective, the personal effectiveness issue that I was talking about, it's going to happen only to those who become digitally aware. Okay, next slide, please. That is slide 19. Now, I am not going, I think I'll skip this, or maybe I'll quickly go over it. See, now look, if you look at this next, yeah. The examination, if you just look at the way examination was conducted in KUHS in Kerala, it was brutally centralized. And the problem is that, you know what happened? A middle-level teacher handling 2 theory and 2 practical subjects will spend about 300 hours teaching and 260 hours on examinations. Now, this examination, 260 hours evaluating something which has taught 300 hours. And the funny thing is that during this time, a student, what he has learned, 70% of what he has learned in the subject is written in 3 hours. So 70% of his learning for 1 year is reproduced in a paper during a period of just 3 hours. And this 3-hour paper is valued approximately in 10 minutes. So what is the amount of time devoted to evaluating a student's performance for a complete year in a subject? 10 minutes. 70% of it occurs in 10 minutes. Where is the justice? This is what I had pointed out in a publication. We had published this. There is no justification to the manner in which education evaluation is conducted in the health university, because you are spending 10 minutes to evaluate a student's performance, the result of having studied for the complete year. Okay, and the student and the teacher spends about the same amount of time evaluation as he or she spends on teaching. There's a lot of injustice in this, and we had raised this issue, but of course, I don't think these are all issues that has to happen at the top. Now, look, the next table will sum this up. Now, I don't want to go into more details. I think everybody can read this. There's a paper. I can send the link to anybody who's. Yeah, we have published quite a few papers on these things, and I would welcome the readers get back to me on by email. I can send those papers to you. Next slide, please. That is 21. Slide 21. Now, I have found in my so many years of teaching that many are reluctant to take up digitalization. Not in social media. They're all Facebook members. They're all, they're very enthusiastic about WhatsApp and sharing a song or sharing a TikTok or something, a joke, a cartoon. They're very enthusiastic about it, and they buy a very expensive phone to do this trivial, what appears to be to me quite trivial. I'm not saying it's unimportant. It is important to be trivial too, because you have a personal life in which you should be light-hearted in your temper. You need to live as well. But what I'm trying to say is that that should not become your major occupation. Is it okay? So this is the issue that I want to tell you. There is, so now I'll be, excuse me, I want to talk to the.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, there's a problem. I don't have much data left on this cell phone. So I'll have to sum it up quickly.
Oh, no problem, sir.
Yeah. Okay, next slide, please. I have only 9 megabytes or something. I don't know. It's a very high data consumption, is it? Can you change the data? I never had this problem on other things. This is a very high data.
Sir, you can switch off the video, then the net consumption will be slow. I will turn it off.
Okay.
I have just stopped your video.
I've done that. Yeah. Okay. Now, now looking at this, now the thing is, many of us are reluctant to go into digital options when it comes to serious business. Actually, a lot of it can be done on the laptop. Get a laptop, that's most important. And email is very important. Instead of talking on the phone, try to use email. It improves writing, it increases the language, it improves, there's less talking and more writing. You become responsible, accountable. And by responding to emails, you expand your network. People come to know you and you get familiar with the keyboard. And people who are serious by writing are the ones who are serious in education. Get familiar with the keyboard. Observe the phone holiday. One day you decide, I'm not going to use the phone at all. It improves. There's some kind of a mauna vrat over the phone. It helps. Digitize your class notes instead of writing things down on a paper. Digitization helps sharing. Convert all your lecture notes into PowerPoint. Get familiar with digital communication portals, content creation. For instance, this software that we are just using. Get familiar with these. Next slide, please. Now, the Indian professors ignore emails from students. There was a study recently. In fact, there's a problem about India. Culturally, we are not oriented to digital communication. We all want phones. That's also the reason why the phone network has expanded so much in this country. And most of the senior members are stuck to the phone. They execute most of their work on phone. This is not the way it goes in many countries abroad, there's a lot of writing. Now, there was a study conducted by a student in Manipal. They found that 16% of Indian professors replied to an email versus 37% from the West. Now, this difference is very clear in the manner in which India treats education. This treats students, I would say. Professors are not net savvy. Their secretaries are handling their emails. Now this student who did this study, he did not get an internship in any college, any of the 10 pharmacy institutions in India he applied to, because they didn't reply. He got in Massachusetts College of Pharmacy in Boston. He got his internship. You understand? Now, next slide, please. That is 23. Now, digital medium compels you to write more. That is what I would say. Reading maketh the full man, conference a ready man, and writing an exact man, as Francis Bacon said. It's very important that the digital medium is utilized today, because that is the real new medium. Social media networks also try to use written messages. Writing reaches more people and spreads faster. See, it takes how much time to listen to a video. Writing, many pages can be sent immediately and it reaches faster. Switching from talking to writing makes you more responsible, more precise, more exact, more careful, more self-critical, enforces politically and socially appropriate behavior. It converts your thoughts into words and cultivates a meditative, introspective mood. It becomes more expressive and eloquent, your words. You become socially more influential and improve your sphere of influence, your network, and you become better known and better respected and less vulnerable to empty criticism. So I would rather persuade most of the teachers to switch to a written mode, and the digital opportunity is enormous. I would like you to see this opportunity and jump into it. Next slide, please. Now, online learning and blended learning, we have done a study, Now, I don't know whether you know about blended learning. Blended learning is something that helps you to combine both face-to-face with online. Now, this is the standard in the West. A lot of assignments are assigned. Assignments are sent by online, and even submissions are online. Now, blended learning is a judicious mix of online and face-to-face learning. It's already popular in the West. You must have all heard of MOOCs. In fact, India is generating a lot of MOOCs. You might have heard of the Swayam portal. If you're not familiar with these portals and all that, it's important to start looking at them. Now, India is just waking up. The edtech companies are minting money. Byju's, Adda 247, and then ALO Learning, all that. There are about 40 such edtech startups when I searched. Why are they making money? Because India is waking up. And who made them wake up? The pandemic. Unfortunately, we had to be blown over the pandemic to learn this. Next slide, please. Now, those who are in pharmacy students will be, teachers will be more occupying seats. But I think it's all. Anyway,
sir, your audio, sir. Huh? Sir, there is some problem with your audio, sir.
Hello. Yeah. Hello.
The voice is breaking, sir.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear now?
Now, sir. Clear, sir. Now clear, sir.
Okay. Now there are apps for every specialty. You can download them and learn. Next slide, please. Now I conclude. Next slide. Hello. Next slide.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Which sir, slide number 26? Hello. Sir, which slide, sir? Slide number 26?
Yeah, 26, right. Yes. Recently, hello.
Sir, actually, the audio is not clear, sir. I think you must switch to another network or something, sir. If you Can you switch to Wi-Fi or something?
Sure. Can you just give me a small break?
Yeah, sure, sir. We will wait, sir. Around 57 members are there. So participants, please take a short break with just 2 minutes only. We'll continue now.
ഒരു വൈഫൈ കിട്ടുമോ കുറച്ചു നേരം ടോക്കിന്റെ ഇത് മുഴുവൻ കഴിഞ്ഞു ലാപ്ടോപ്പ്
I think our resource person will join soon. So here in this slide, Sarah has been shared. Please see the slide here. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm very sorry for this inconvenience. I'll continue. I have
No problem, sir. No
managed.
problem.
I don't know. This your software is taking up so much space. Huh? It's a very I think I don't know because I think it's our.
No problem, sir. No problem, sir.
Yeah. Okay. And I just build on this. See, today I am on 26 slides. 26, I think. The next slide. We did a study on, I think, the previous study. And next slide. Next slide. 25 is the pharmacy. Can you hear me?
Sir, I can hear you. You want a slide on PLOS ONE, the article you have published on PLOS ONE, right?
Yes. That's right. That's
the same one, sir. Here.
That's not what I'm seeing on the. That's not what I am seeing. I don't know. Okay, doesn't matter. So we published a paper recently in which we can proudly say that the Manipal University and the three authors from the National College of Pharmacy, where this program is being organized, 3 authors are from there. And what we did is a meta-analysis of learning effectiveness, blended learning in pharmacy education, a systematic review. What we did is we analyzed the study and we went through, you must first know what is a meta-analysis. Meta-analysis is nothing but a study of many studies, and the total impression is what we collect from a meta-analysis. Now, we wanted to evaluate the effectiveness of BL, that is blended learning, in improving knowledge and skills in pharmacy education. And we got all this information by searching the PubMed and Medline and Scopus and Cochrane library. The retrieved studies were screened for title and abstracts. Full text versions were chosen. Methodological quality was appraised. Random effect model was used for statistical modeling. Next slide, please. I don't think we are not synchronized on slides. Anyway, it's still showing online learning and blended learning.
Actually, sir, it's a slide on our study on blended learning. That's a slide. 27 slide is showing, sir.
Oh,
no problem, sir. You can look on your computer, sir.
Yeah. No problem. Yeah. So on our study on blended learning, the background I've already explained to you. Next one, please. That is slide 28. A total of 2,539 records were retrieved and 2,448 underwent initial screening. 65 full text articles and 20 for meta-analysis were chosen. 26 were included in systematic review. Then what we found was, in the next slide, we found that 20 out of 4,525 participants used traditional teaching in control group. And what we found was that there's a significant positive effect size on knowledge and skill imparting in blended learning. If you see the graph in slide number 29, there are two graphs. Now the graph on the right, the bell-shaped graph towards the right, that is the response, the result we got for blended learning. Whereas the traditional learning, what we got is the green. The purple line indicates the shift. The green to purple. There's been so much of a better performance with blended learning. And as I mentioned to you, blended learning is the combination of online learning with face-to-face learning. What I'm trying to say is that it is important to have a digital component in learning. India is not doing its best. In fact, if you look at it, the statistical probability is very high. Knowledge, the statistical value is 0.00001. And for skill, it is 0.006. So this significance clearly tells you that we are not digitally mature in our educational system. We need to mature further. Next slide, please. Now, look at this group analysis. The developed countries had a much greater sample size. The developing countries much less. You understand? So what we are trying to say is that the developing nations have to catch up with digital learning. If you want to be personally effective, you have to reach the digital learning levels of the West. That's my point here. Now look at this lessons on this. Now, if you look at 31, slide number 31. Now, out of 26 studies we included, only 4 are from developing countries and nothing from India. China represented, Thailand, Brazil, Malaysia, Iran, they're all represented. Out of the 26 studies which we included in this meta-analysis, only 4, and none of them from India. So what is the lesson for us? India is performing in educational technology. This is our own study, which was published very recently, just a few months back. Now, I want you to learn more from this. The real lesson is that the time budget, blended learning techniques completed ahead of allotted time. That's the thing. Now, normal period, see, if you are able to complete your education by a blended learning, you can save a few weeks. You can have a few weeks extra vacation. How do you like that? The teachers and the students, they can enjoy a few extra holidays if you execute the blended learning. The blended learning is relaxed, it is flexible, it is scheduled appropriately based on a personal need. Its electronic materials are available at their own pace, more interactive. Classroom discussions are meaningful. You know why the classroom discussions are meaningful? Because when you meet offline, you are already familiar with the content online. We went through it. So there's a revision time. So it increases the amount of informed interactions, and there's variety. Blended learning has a variety of face-to-face and online components. Okay, so there's one more lesson which I would like to emphasize. Next study, slide number 33. Now that is a very important lesson too for all of us. This paper that we published in PLOS One, it's one of the very prestigious journals. We got a fee waiver also. It was done entirely during the first phase of the severe lockdown in 2020, when we were not able to move out of our houses. Many authors have not even seen or spoken to each other, the authors listed in the paper. At least 200 to 250 emails were exchanged in order to complete the study by me only. There's a exchange an equal number or more. Except for two authors, I never met or spoke to any others while writing the paper. Less than 5 phone calls were necessary to clear some confusion. No money was spent on travel, food, accommodation, photocopying, printing, or postage. I have not printed a single page to do this study. Everything was done by a computer. I had two screens, one extra screen. That's how I did it. The lesson is that we have to be equipped to deal with the next generation. So your own future means your future is ready if you can change with time, adapt to different environments, works in teams, build and evolve and sustain the networks. Now look at the network I've shown there. So many disciplines interact. Think across discipline, trust and support each other, discard the hierarchy, communicate effectively in writing, online, respect and cooperate with those in unequal positions. Whether he's a student or a principal, you should treat them based on their ability to interact intellectually, not based on power or position. So these are the lessons we learned from this digital exercise, which we have achieved during this online point. So now that's all. I would like to conclude with that. My last slide comes, and I dedicate this lecture to the memory of my 3 wonderful years in National College of Pharmacy, who is hosting this function. I'm grateful to the management, the students, the teachers, the organizers, and everybody else. Thank you very much. I'm sorry to have disappointed you with. Actually, I made a mistake. My dongle I left behind in the at home and forgot to bring it. This is the only day I missed that. Otherwise, I always bring it. I don't know. It's just misfortune. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much. I don't know if there is.
No, sir. No, sir. Nothing. Nothing, sir. We can. No problem, sir. Sir, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfect. No problem.
Sir, actually, there was. Hello, sir.
Was there too many interruptions?
No interruptions, sir. Actually, we can see the slide changing. I think due to your network problem. No. Sync was perfect, okay, sir. No problem.
Okay. I'm sorry if I troubled you with my poor. Yeah. Okay.
No problem, sir. The lecture was perfect, and I would like to request the participants to ask any questions if they have any. Participants?
Yeah, but there's my email is written here. I hope you can hear. Listen to me. unnikrishnan.mk@nitte.edu. I'm sorry, there's a mistake. Oh God, I'm very sorry. It's edu.in. Okay. Not EU. Please change that, Akash.
Yeah, sir. Yes.
Yeah. edu.in. So that has to be changed. And you can write to me. I would welcome always written communication. Now, I'm telling you, if we don't switch to a digital world, we will be left behind. I want to change. Is that okay?
Okay, sir. Anyone wants to ask?
I have one to the audience. Please check. This takes a lot of data, whether it's a data heavy program. Because I've conducted so many lectures, I've never had this problem of data getting exhausted in a single hour. EU has to be changed by EDU, the last slide.
Sir, actually, I have posted it in the chat box. unnikrishnan.mk@nitte.edu.in. I have posted it in the chat box.
No problem. Thank you very much, and most welcome to write to me if you have any queries or something. Please read the paper. It has a lot of insight into the way education is run. I hope it was useful. I really hope some people learned something from it. That's all I would
definitely will be that. There will be, sir. There will be. So if there are no queries, means we can wind up the session for today. Any queries? So no questions. Tomorrow is the last day, and tomorrow's talk is tomorrow's lecture is run by Dr. Atmaram Pawar, and the topic is teaching learning in view of National Education Policy 2020. So tomorrow talk at 9:30 on teaching learning in view of National Education Policy 2020 by Dr. Atmaram Pawar, followed by teaching learning evolution post-COVID analysis by Professor Rajiv Vyar. So thank you, Unnikrishnan sir. Thank you for joining us and giving us a wonderful lecture. Thank you so much. Thank you all the participants. The feedback and attendance link will be shared in the WhatsApp group. Please do find it. Please do mark your feedbacks. Unnikrishnan sir, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Can I stop?
Yes, sir. Sure, sir. You can stop, sir. Thank you all. Thank you all.